morning, everybody. Woo! Everybody's at the beach. Whoa, let's stand up and celebrate that we're here. We'll sing together our congregational song that's on the far left side of your program. It's called God and Everything. If you don't know it, you'll know it by the time we're done. We're going to sing it a bunch of times, and here we go. And so it is, and so we allow ourselves to be still, to continue to breathe in and out, resting, being, relaxing, as we open our minds and hearts to hear the words of our sacred reading.
A prayer by Shanti Deva. May I be a guard for those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a raft, a bridge for those who wish to cross the flood. May I be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a healing medicine for all who are sick, a vase of plenty, a tree of miracles. And for the boundless multitudes of living beings, may I bring sustenance and awakening, enduring like the earth and sky, until all beings are freed from sorrow and all are awakened.
And so it is. And so we breathe into the awareness of that resting place, that bond, that bridge, that raft, that life force that is who we are. As we open our hearts further still and sing together, I am remembering who I am. And we take in all the sounds of God being human. And we breathe in deeply with love and compassion for ourselves and everyone. And then exhale, opening our eyes in love with what is as it is. And so it is.
We believe in things we cannot see. Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? Hands and heel can set a chained man free. Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? And we believe there's peace within every heart. Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? Burning brightly, brightly. Not too late, God is all around. Buddha's at the gate. Allah hears your prayer. It's not too late. Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? And we believe in things we cannot see. Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we?
Hello. Good to see you. Thank you, Melissa, and our wonderful band. Appreciate you so much. Thanks. Thank you to everybody. Thanks for all of you for being here on this hot day. I see some of you brought your church lady fans. Oh, what a day. We're so blessed to live in Ventura, though, aren't we? So gorgeous, so lovely. So I wanted to start this morning by talking about something that I learned about a year ago when I was taking a seminar with Rachel Remen up in Northern California. And for those of you who are not familiar with Rachel Remen, she is the granddaughter, she's the daughter of atheists and the granddaughter of a Kabbalistic rabbi. So she has kind of this eclectic past, and she's also a doctor, a very well-known doctor, and she brought her whole philosophical being into medicine, and she's doing, in the past and in the present, has done a lot of work to kind of change the face of medicine, to humanize it, and to bring out the sacred aspects of medical healing. Anyway, I took a seminar with her with a bunch of doctors and a bunch of nurses, and me, a minister, and another minister. And one of the things that she asked us to do was to take a moment to think about the first time that we ever felt compassion. To see if we could remember the first time we ever felt compassion. Can you do that for just a moment? See if you can remember the first time you ever felt compassion. And so it is. It's something interesting to ponder because it kind of sheds light on your soul and who you are. One of the stories that Rachel Remen told us was about this, when she had asked this question to a group of doctors she was training. And one of them, I believe she said he was a cardiac surgeon, told about the first time he felt compassion. He said that he was just a child of maybe 3 or 4, and his mother was giving him a bath in this old-fashioned, one of those big bathtubs, with the feet. Yes, one of those, and the drain was a little bit odd, so he accidentally scraped his foot on the drain, and it started to bleed. And his mother held him and comforted him, and I guess it stopped bleeding pretty quickly, and he was back in the bathtub. But when it came time to drain the water, his mother pulled the old-fashioned plug, and the water started going down. And this little boy, now a cardiac doctor, took a washcloth, and he put it around the drain so the water wouldn't hurt itself. Is that the sweetest thing you ever heard? That he truly got the spirit of water and the spirit in all things that we tend to think of as inanimate? I'll tell you what, it made me think a lot about my first acts of compassion, because the one that I remembered, this is not as cool as the one about the water, but I remember when you were a kid and you used to get chocolate Easter bunnies or chocolate Santas. Anybody here ever bite the heads off first? Right? Are you with me? You bite the heads off so you can eat the rest of it in peace, so you know that the chocolate bunny is not being hurt. Okay, am I delusional, or are y'all delusional with me? And I noticed that consciousness, I just a moment ago said that if you look at your first act of compassion, you can see how it's still playing out in your life. And I see that act of biting the heads off of the bunnies and the Santas is still playing out in my relationship with inanimate objects. When I was packing for that very trip to go see Rachel Remen and to work with her, I was packing my little toiletries, and I was talking to my things as I was putting them in my little bag. I was saying to my mascara, "Oh, you get to go on a trip, yay!" And I had 2 toothbrushes, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to take the pink one. The green one has to stay home, but you'll be safe because you'll be right there by the nail clippers. So, it's a little strange, but it helps me appreciate the reverence and the beauty of all things if I kind of give them a personality. And this brings us to our topic for today, which is about sacred spending. Many of you know that this past summer I took a sort of a leadership seminar with our friend Nipun Mehta, who is a kind of a gratitude, kindness guru and a big influence in my life, a big teacher for me and for this congregation. And we did a session, a 6-week session together. And one of the topics was money. And I remember saying on the conference call or writing it or something that I like to think of money having a personality. And if my money has a personality, most certainly it wants to come out and play. It wants to get out of the darkness of my wallet or the darkness of my savings account and get out and play and do good works in the world. So in honor of that, I brought one of my friends with me today. This is Ben. He kind of needs a haircut. This is a personal ad for Ben Franklin. He would like to go home with somebody today. He'd like to maybe take some of you and your friends to a movie, buy a little popcorn, what have you. He could also take you to a nicer restaurant and get maybe lunch for 2. If you really want him to show how abundant he is, bring him to the 99-cent store. He can do some major work there, right? Have a whole bunch of stuff. So anyway, as I said, Ben doesn't want to stay in my wallet. Ben wants to go home with someone today. He's somebody's dream date today. So look at your program, and if you have a little heart where it says something about the message, right? Where it says message and prayer. There should be a little heart there. Does anybody? You have it? Yay! It's your birthday? Congratulations. Sure. I don't know if everybody heard you say that it's her birthday. It's her birthday. That's great. That's awesome. So that's sacred spending. You see how good that felt? You know, if you didn't have the little heart by your thing, maybe you felt a moment of disappointment, but you got to see her joy and know that it was her birthday. You don't mean like birthday, do you? Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay. Because that looks like it might be coming up, all right? So I'm not equipped to handle that this morning, just so you know. But that's what sacred spending is. Now, in meditating on this idea of sacred spending, of what it really is, because in my mind it's not only about money, it's about other things. I did think of this, game show portion of our service here and thought about the idea of giving away some money and how much fun that is, but it's also about the other forms of currency that we have that we'll be talking about a little bit later on. But if I had to define sacred spending in terms of what I was thinking about over this past weekend as I was meditating on this, the word that kept coming up for me was sacrifice. Now, it was no sacrifice to give our friend here, what's your name again, sweetie? Heather, our friend Heather. It was no sacrifice for me to give Heather that $100 bill, but it felt a little sacrificial in terms of, what will the congregation think? I'm turning my beautiful service into a game show. There's maybe, in this case, I'm not going to give everybody a $100 bill, blah, blah, blah. So it's sacrificing all of that, just letting go of all of that to be in the flow and to be in the joy. That's what sacrifice is. Sacrifice is kind of a swear word in religious science. We don't talk about it very much. In fact, when I tried to look it up in the textbook, and it's only mentioned once, and Ernest Holmes says that we don't have to live of sacrifice, meaning that we don't have to go home and beat ourselves with a rope if we have impure thoughts, as I like to say. Not that anybody here has impure thoughts, right? I'm not making eye contact. No, but it's more about, sacrifice is more about giving what stands in your way, giving up what stands in your way. It's the Gurdjieff people say, I always point to my husband when I say this, conscious labors and intentional sacrifice. Giving up the suffering. You said sacrifice this morning. Oh. Anyway, you said sacrifice this morning. Whatever it is. Sacrifice or suffering, same thing for the most part. I'm going to hear about this when I get home. Okay. Anyway, it's giving up what stands in the way of your full embodiment of joy, of love, of this crazy, incredible, non-dual reality in which we live. That's the place where I really want to go. That's the place where I really want you to know. If we are able to sacrifice, to let go of our earthbound notions of what giving and receiving truly is, then we get to the place where we really embody and know deeply without knowing. We just know it without knowing. We know that giving and receiving are actually the same thing. I'm sure some of us have been here. Perhaps we were there just a moment when we gave Heather that $100 bill. That was a collective decision, folks. Y'all got your programs. There was some divine force working to allow Heather to have that $100 bill, and I'm so happy about that. That's evidence of the divine. So we've all been in that place where giving and receiving are one, but there are other attitudes that we sometimes embody too. So I want to talk a little bit about different attitudes around giving. Those of you who have taken the foundations class and those of you who are in the non-duality class may be familiar with this. But in this center, we talk about something called the 4 kingdoms of consciousness. Kingdom 1, by the way, we don't transcend these kingdoms of consciousness. We all go to them every single day. I was in Kingdom 1 today. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Anyway, Kingdom 1 is when you are in victim consciousness, when you feel like life is being done to you. And the attitude around giving in terms of Kingdom 1 is that we are constantly clinging to things because we're afraid that someone is going to take something from us, right? You hear a lot about that, when people are mad at the government, the medical establishments, all kinds of things, big business, all of that can be in a very victim-y place. I was in Kingdom 1, not so much today, but earlier this week when the high school band was practicing. I live right by Santa Paula High School, and they were practicing, and I was in this place that they were taking something from me. They were taking my peace of mind. They were taking my quiet, and I needed my quiet because I had to work. So it just took a little bit of prayer to shift out of that place of feeling victimized, feeling like something was being taken from me, to a place where, oh my gosh, there are young children, teenagers, playing musical instruments. Isn't that better than some of the other things they could be doing, right? Right? So that's Kingdom 1. Kingdom 2 is a kingdom where people often start in this philosophy. That's the kingdom of it is done by me. That's what The Secret is about. But you'll notice that The Secret is very much about getting stuff, right? The Secret is not so much about giving. Now that's a useful kingdom to be in if you felt helpless or if you felt powerless, but it won't get you very far. It won't get you to that place where you recognize giving and receiving as one. Kingdom 3 and Kingdom 4 are very closely related. I can barely discern the difference when I'm in Kingdom 3 or Kingdom 4. But Kingdom 3 is the kingdom of being a vessel. There's a song that we sing at this center. Here I am, a vessel to be used. Whatever spirit needs of me, I will be, I will be, I will be. That's the Kingdom 3 consciousness, where we're getting our smaller self, we're getting our petty thinking and our small ideas, as Ernest Holmes said. We're getting that out of the way. We're sacrificing it in order to be a vessel for something larger that wants to come through us. And I would say that Kingdom 4 is the place where, again, we recognize there's nothing to get out of the way even. We are just at one with God, and we recognize that giving and receiving are really the same thing. I keep coming back to Rumi's fields in this service. It's out beyond the field of giving and receiving. There is a field where I'll meet you, where when the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. The words you, me, each other don't even make any sense. That's Kingdom 4. I'll give you an example of Kingdom 4 from a video that I saw recently. This is about a gentleman that lives in Australia, and he has an organization called Lentil as Anything. Lentil, like the bean, Lentil as Anything. And he does a pay-it-forward type of restaurant, similar to Karma Kitchen, which we've talked a lot about here, where people come in and he cooks a meal for them and they pay whatever they want. He did get an $11,000 meal one time, so it's just, but sometimes he gets meals for $1 and sometimes people don't pay anything. But this gentleman, his name is Shanika Fernando. He doesn't have very many possessions. And it said in the video that on the front door of his house there is a sign, and it says, "I don't lock my doors. Come on in if you want to and take anything you want." Now, where do you go when you hear something like that? Anybody here planning on doing that? No, I'm not either. I think about living so close to the high school and all the high school kids walking by and seeing that sign on my door. All right, here we go. But it's really interesting to think about what you would miss, what they could take. I mean, of course, the mammals in my home, the birds and the fish, I love them, but if they took the birds and the fish, not so much. But after the mammals in my home, meaning the humans and the dogs and the cat, the first thing I go to is I don't want them to take my flat screen TV and my Roku. I need my Roku. That's what you stream through, right? Those of you who are not familiar with whatever technology, you stream Netflix through your Roku and you can binge watch all kinds of fascinating things to help take your mind off of whatever, right? Right? I need my Roku. So that really, this guy, Fernando, with his sign on the door saying, "Take whatever you want," that really is a sign of Kingdom 4 consciousness. But if the temptation may be to say, "Oh, I have to go there too. I've got to do just like that. If I'm not doing that, I'm not giving enough." And that's absolutely not what we're intending here. I was told this summer in this course that I was taking that feeling like you're not giving enough, feeling like you have to give out of obligation, feeling a sense of one-upmanship in your giving is actually evidence of a greedy mind, of a mind that is seeking approval or that is seeking status through giving. And that's the opposite of what we're talking about. The thing to remember is to just look at yourself and see where you can authentically shift into sacred giving or sacred spending, and just see what the next authentic thing that will stretch you just a little bit will be, and then do it, then actually do it, follow through with it. And also recognize that in terms of that story that I told about Shanaka Fernando, chances are we have all done something similar, right? You may not have a sign on your door that says, "Come into my house and take whatever you want," but how many of us have sacrificed for some greater good? How many of us have done the right thing, even when it was difficult or inconvenient? How many of us have sat up with a sick child at night, even though you needed your sleep so badly? How many of us have twisted ourselves like a pretzel so our dog or cat could get a good night's sleep? And it's so worth it, isn't it? My dog Stella used to sleep next to me, and she would put her head across my neck, so I was pinned to the bed by this dog. And I'm going to get all Emily in our town now, but I'd give anything to have one more day of that. It's precious, and it's priceless. So we trade in the commodity of pricelessness, and that is what we spend. Which brings me to my next point, is that there are all forms of currency. There are tons of different forms of currency. It's not just about money. It's not just about Ben or any of his friends, George Washington or Andrew Jackson or Ulysses S. Grant, all of those little friends that want to come out and play. Yes, they want to come out and play. Let them come out and play. Do fun things with them. Do useful things with them. But there are other forms of currency. There's the currency of kindness, the currency of compassion, the currency of listening, the currency of being fully present with someone, the currency of being good to oneself. All of these currencies that we tend to ignore, that we have to sacrifice a little bit. We have to sacrifice a little bit of our ego in order to get in alignment with these currencies and start spending them in a sacred manner so that we too can know that giving and receiving are actually the same thing. Isn't that cool? We get to do all that? I'm excited. I'm a little hot, but I'm excited. So I started thinking about the idea of saving versus spending, and I started thinking of some of the unhealthy saving that we do. I'm going to leave hoarders out of that. I've never seen that TV show. I hear it's fascinating, but I've never seen it, and I'm personally not a hoarder. But I did think about one saving that I've done many times that is not healthy, that is not good for me, that is probably not good for any of us. And that is saving face. Saving face instead of doing what's right. A couple of years ago, I was having a conversation with one of my best friends. He's another minister, Mark, who you've heard me talk about. And I had, before that conversation, I had told Mark a story that he could use in a sermon. And I thought I had told him that he could use the story, but it was about me, and I didn't want him to say my name, because it was like a cancer story, and I didn't want his congregation, who I know pretty well, to be worried about me. So we were talking on the phone, and he told me that he told this story, and he talked about how many people afterwards expressed concern and good wishes for me. And I was like, wait a minute, you said my name? Why did you say my name? I told you not to say my name. And Mark immediately jumped into this sort of defensive position of saying, well, I thought you could, but they all love you, all this stuff. And then finally he just dropped it. It was so beautiful to watch. He dropped it and he said, whatever happened to I'm sorry. I am so sorry. And I was ready to forgive him anyway. I'm sure I know I put my foot in my mouth up here and said things I shouldn't have said, and it's very easy to do. But that moment when he said, whatever happened to I'm sorry, I am so sorry, everything melted away. We went right to that Kingdom 4 place where there is no separation, where the oneness and the wholeness of the universe is expressing simply through his willingness to stop trying to save face and stop trying to make himself be right, stop trying to defend his decision, and just say, I'm sorry. In the book, the play, Tuesdays with Maury, who is dying of Lou Gehrig's disease, tells Mitch, the writer who wrote the book, he tells him, at this point, forgive everyone. Forgive everyone. Where I'm sitting, It doesn't make any sense to hold on to any grudges. Just forgive everyone, whether they're right or wrong. Just forgive them. Forgiveness is a very close relation to I'm sorry. So what if there is someone in your heart that you're holding a grudge against, or some way that you're propping yourself up and defending yourself? And what if you could trade in the currency, stop saving face, and just trade in the currency of apology, of forgiveness, of asking for forgiveness, of grace, of mercy? Any of those beautiful, beautiful currencies that they sometimes, it just amazes me. I do it too. We work so hard to avoid because we so want to be right, and we so want to bind ourselves with this cocoon of ego, but it feels so good to let it go, doesn't it? I'm not alone in this. Anybody nod your head if you're not? Okay, good. Yeah, so if there's someone you want to apologize to, or someone whose forgiveness you want to ask for, just do it. Just spend that currency. Another thing that we're always trying to save, that I'm always trying to save, is time. We are constantly trying to save time. Have you noticed in all of our efforts to save time, microwaves, cell phones, computers, that it seems like there is less and less time around us? I am constantly trying to save time, and I rush through my life so I have enough time to do what? To go home and watch that Roku that I'm so connected to. What if instead of rushing through our lives so that we could go home and numb ourselves, in whatever way we choose to numb ourselves, what if instead of trying to save time, our whole life was a trade in the currency of surrendering to the present moment and being fully present with what is, rather than trying to rush through it so we can get to that thing that we probably don't really want to do anyway at the end of the day, right? What if our whole life was a prayer? What if our whole life was a pilgrimage? What if every single moment was infused with this energy of goodness and recognizing that this is a good moment? Even if I don't like it, this is a good moment because God is here. What if we could start spending that kind of currency, the currency of presence to the present moment? Our lives would change in an instant. So that's the second one. And then the third one that I was thinking about was saving story. You may wonder what that means. Many of us have a story, a tale of woe, a very kingdom one tale of victimhood that we like to tell. It can be subtle or it could be bold, but we save it. We like to cling to it. We like to cling to it. We like to tell it. We like to bring it out and polish it and embellish it. What if we were able to let some of that go? And one of the most creative ways that I've found of letting go of story is to recognize that everybody has a story. We're not alone. And what if, I learned this from a church member, she said that when she is in the presence of someone who is in pain, who's telling their story, and she also is desperate to tell her story, probably her story is about the person who's in pain, right? Why don't you, whatever, stop telling the story that I've heard so many times. She says that her new mantra that she says to herself when she is facing somebody in that situation is, your pain is more important than my pain. What if it is? What if it isn't? The paradox about that, to sit with somebody who is in pain, who is complaining, who is struggling, to sit there and just say, and be a present listener, and to say, your pain is more important than my pain. I've tried this, and what happens is that your pain disappears. That's the paradox. As soon as we surrender to that moment of being that bridge or that vessel or that instrument for somebody else, as soon as we let go of our needfulness, of our need for improvement, or our need to continue to tell and embellish and polish our story, the story just tends to dissipate. I'm beginning to feel more and more that service and our willingness and our emptiness is the answer for everything. It is not getting more stuff. It is not rising up in the spiritual hierarchy. It is lowering ourselves and bowing deeply to life and bowing deeply to every single opportunity that is presented to us. So being with someone and saying, your pain is more important than my pain, silently to yourself, is one way to do it. Now, I have to give you a warning. There are times when your pain will be more important than the other person's, right? None of these things that I'm offering you are cookie cutters. Just have to apply them in ways that are suitable and useful for you. And feel free to reject anything. Feel free just to leave anything here that you don't want to do. But what I'm urging all of us is to move into that place where we are very conscious of the currency or the energy that we are spending in every single moment, and move into that place of gentle sacrifice, of gentle letting go of that which no longer serves us, of that which props up the ego, and moving into that place of abundant generosity. And that's the paradox in spiritual teaching, is that as we start to empty ourselves, as we start to let go, when we give life everything, then life gives everything to us. It's hard to put into words, but I also know that many of you have experienced this in small moments of your lives, and some of the things that I have talked about already. So the key is to just keep doing it, to keep looking for opportunities to practice this. I told my class the other day, I went to Vaughn's, and I hardly ever get to eat sandwiches because I don't eat bread with gluten in it and that type of thing, but I really wanted a sandwich, and I got one, and the guy who waited on me was just so kind. And I decided that I was going to remember his name and write a thank you note to the manager to tell him of this guy's kindness. Of course, when I got out of Vaughn's, A, I couldn't find my car. You know how that is, right? B, I couldn't remember the guy's name. I was in a hurry, but I'm like, no, it's not about rushing through life. It's about being present to the small moments. So I went back in, and I figured out his name. I asked somebody what his name was, and then I wrote a thank you note. And there are an anonymous thank you note, unless he's seeing the cable. Hello, it was me. But there are so many objections that I had to doing that in the moment. But that's really what I'm talking about. These little tiny acts of kindness and goodness, these little tiny increments of currency that we're putting into the world, that truly blesses us. The reason that I want you to know this so badly, the reason that I'm really, really harping on this topic, and probably will continue to talk about it quite a bit, is that I just feel like this is where this church needs to go. This is where this center needs to go. This is where this movement needs to go. This is where all of us get to go. And I want everybody in this room to get this, because you are all really, really good people. And you deserve a good life. And this is one way to have that life of goodness and grace and wonderment. Because as we start practicing these acts, we need to put this stuff into action. As we start practicing it, our mind and our heart changes, and we see that life is that place where giving and receiving are one. This reminds me of something that I learned from Edwene Gaines, who a lot of people think she's all about getting the Cadillac and all of that stuff, but really, having worked with her fairly closely, she really is very much about, what am I going to give to this moment? And one of the things that she says in her books, that her whole life she would go around and say to God, God, please, God, I'm here for you. Tell me what to do. And then one day she got really quiet, and she heard God's voice say, Edwene, really, I'm here for you. Tell me what to do. And so when we hear a poem like Hugh read, absolutely, I'll read just a little bit to you, the Shantideva poem. May I be a guard for those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a raft, a bridge for those who wish to cross the flood. Yes, we are saying that, speaking those words to humanity. I want to be a guard for you. I want to be a guide for you. I want to be a boat, a raft, a bridge for those who wish to cross the flood. But as we start speaking those words and knowing that for humanity, we start to cross that threshold into Kingdom 4 consciousness, and we know that God is speaking those words to us, saying, Brock, Linda, Ted, Reagan, Becky, may I be a guard for you. May I be a guide for you on the path, Doreen. May I be a boat, Diane. A bridge, Anne. A raft, Bob. Make me an instrument of your peace, Sue. All of those things. God wants to get out and play. God is like Ben Franklin. He probably needs a haircut, but he still wants to get out and play. He wants to get out and express beautifully in our lives, and we are that channel for that good. So take that into your heart, know it, and live it, and watch your whole life change. I promise. Let's do that now. Let us pray. And so I turn within and absolutely trust and know that there is truly one life. That life is God's life. And that life is a life that is beyond all opposites. It is whole, it is full, it is complete, it is empty, it is generous. It is all of these things and so much more because it is beyond my words. I center into an awareness of that life right now and know it as my life. I know that this life is good and blessed and very good, that this life is love. And so now I commit to using this energy that has been bequeathed to me by the Creator, by the One Most High, by all life, by the highest and the lowest, the wholeness and the brokenness. Everything about me is to be used for good. So I trust this. I surrender to this. I engage in the process. I commit to many small acts of good in my life. I commit to surrendering my ego and moving into that beautiful place of oneness. And I commit to forgiving myself when I do not. And I commit to also knowing that everything, the ego, the sacred self, everything that is beyond words is part of the wholeness of the universe, part of the wholeness of my life, and that is beautiful in its own unique and wonderful way. And so, most of all, I take the words beyond these words that I am speaking and take them into my heart and allow them to guide me to the next right thing to do for my spiritual growth, for my becoming a greater vessel or instrument for spirit, for my recognition of the oneness and the wholeness in everything. I know that a life is custom designed for me, and I am co-creating that life through my willingness. And I say yes to that, and I say thank you to that, for I know it is good. I am grateful for the spiritual work that we have done here this morning, so grateful for the transformation, not only for ourselves, for everybody here today, for everybody who is not here, but for the entire world, knowing that this center has an impact on the goodness of creation. I bless this spiritual teaching as I bless all paths to God, churches, synagogues, temples, mosques, and ashrams. I bless fundamentalists and atheists, for everyone is a blessing. And with a heart filled with blessedness, I say, thank you, Spirit, thank you, God, and I release these words into the mystery, and together we say, and so it is.
My mom and dad raised me to treat people the way I want them to treat me. Now go on and think that thought through. Why would you live any other way? Makes perfect sense to me. Seems relatively easy before you get yourself caught up thinking you've been wrong. Go on and put yourself in someone else's shoes. Count to 10, take a deep breath. Do what you got to do to slow it on down and check your attitude. 'Cause we can choose to do the right thing when we wake up every day. Once your feet hit the floor, that'll be the change. Give everybody the benefit of the doubt. One person at a time, we can turn this world around.